So the penultimate habit we want to talk about in the last few minutes is around letting go. So as we all acknowledge, none of us would have chosen to have been here, having to cope with this massive economic and medical uncertainty. And if we're in a position in an organization or in a family, we're probably used to being in control. Certainly talking to, I recognize some of the names on this webinar this morning, you've managed your careers, you've managed your lives to be in the position that you've achieved now in the organization. But over the last 6 months, that's all been turned on its head as we've not been able to manage what is happening to us. And that's quite new to us. And as leaders also, often when somebody came to us for an answer, we might have, if we entered into a positive coaching relationship, we might have helped them work out the answer for themselves. But ultimately, at the end of the conversation or end of the coaching session, if they still didn't get it, as a leader, you probably have the answer. Now, during COVID, you may well not have the answer. You may not be in control, and that might feel very unnatural to us. And so I want to introduce you to a concept of the circles of control. And sitting right in the middle there is about what can you absolutely control? What can you directly impact? Where are you able to make a decision, no matter how tough or challenging? It might be on a personal level, what you spend in terms of your food, what you eat. It may be your alcohol consumption. I mentioned the brandy. I only have brandy at the weekend and a couple on Saturday night because, you know, when the pandemic first came out and we had the number 10 announcements every day, I found myself having a brandy at 4:30. That was not good for myself. So I can control the amount of alcohol that I take. It may be where you physically work. It may be moving around the house, as one of our colleagues does. So it's a really useful exercise just to remind yourself and list all the things that you can control. Because by doing this, you see, you do have choices. They might be smaller than you thought before, but you still are in control of some things. And by having choice, you have much more freedom, and freedom leads to happiness. You are more in control than you might think. And then the second circle is around what can you influence? What can you positively influence in others out there in the world, or what events can you influence on? So again, using this activity to take some time to write a list of things that you can influence. This might be around what you feed your family, or it might be in terms of how you advocate on important issues. So consider if there are any areas in your personal life that you'd like to have more influence over. I think at the moment, you know, all of us, whether it's in our personal lives or our professional lives, we're looking for new ideas and new innovations. If you've always wanted to do something and you've really wanted to influence the organization in a particular way about a new idea, a new way of working, or a new innovation, I think organizations are much more open now to new answers and to your influence. And then the third bit is the circle of acceptance. And this is around saying there are some things that I absolutely can't control. There are some things that are totally beyond my control. I may be passionate about them, but I cannot actually get involved. It won't influence the outcome. You know, Joe staying up till 4:30 last night, I'm not going to ask you who you would have voted for, but I guess the American election is outside of your control. And by putting your energy into something that is outside of your control, it's a sure way of depleting your energy. It's almost like, you know, if you're trying to move a boulder with your shoulder and you're pushing it and pushing it, and it just won't move, and you can't control, you're too small, you're not positioned right, you don't have the right tools and the right resources to move that boulder. There are certain things in your professional and your personal life that you have to realize are beyond your control and you have to let go of. But the last practice I want us to think about. Oh, yes?
Can I just chip in there? Because I just want to share the way that I use this tool. So yes, as Mark said, it's really useful to regularly sort of think about your world and what you can control and what you can influence and what you can accept. And one of the things that I use this tool for, I occasionally just print out a few of them. And rather than listing everything and sort of sitting down for 25 minutes and really thinking about the world, I use them if I've got a particular problem that I'm facing or a particular piece of work that I need to do. So to give an example, when I was going back to the example I used to celebrate, you know, I would use this tool for that particular final presentation that we did as a result of getting through to the shortlist. And I'd think, okay, so what can I control in this piece of work? Well, I can control the quality of the slides. I can control the time that we're presenting for. What can I influence? I can influence the way that we're perceived through my tone of voice, through the quality of the work that we're producing. What do I have to accept because it's outside of my control? Well, I have to accept the outcome. And that enabled me to approach that whole opportunity in a really positive way. And I actually did one this morning, Mark, where I was reflecting on my decision to stay up all night watching the election. So I've decided that from now on, I'm going to bear this in mind. What can I control when I go to bed? What can I influence? How well I sleep, because I can think about things like caffeine consumption before, after 4 p.m. and things like that. What do I have to accept? Well, unfortunately, I have to accept the outcome of the US election. It's not for me to change. So it can be useful to sort of take a wide view, and it can also be incredibly useful to take a specific view on a specific challenge that you're facing in your life at that moment.
And that whole thing about being in control in terms of your caffeine. I'm having a herbal tea. I had 4, 5, 6 coffees a day pre-COVID. I only have 2 now because I don't want to have that caffeine in my body. Again, a little micro habit. It's not going to change the world, but it will change me physically and keep my energy levels up in a more natural state than a caffeine state.